Hi Gemini, welcome to your end of January 2019 general tarot reading. It's Raina here and I'm just shuffling these cards. This is the Druid Craft deck. When I say shuffling, they're very big compared to a regular deck. So the shuffling is a little interesting a process. Let me just put it that way. Oh, you have all this feminine energy around you. It's amazing. Okay, wow. I'm going to pick an additional card due to the nature of that card. Okay. And of course I hold up each card so you can see it. The heart of the matter, if I can pick it up, is the Lady, which corresponds with the Empress. Now look at how lush everything is. That shows the fertility, the aliveness, and you can see she's got a belly, she's pregnant, and that is, and you know, she's got her shoes off. It's kind of an earthy energy that's attached to Taurus as well as Libra, but Libra is not an earth sign, but Venus is the common denominator there. Now, Gemini. Gemini is a masculine sign, so even female Gemini individuals, you may feel like, you know, this card can connect with motherhood. So that may be something that is kind of turning over in your mind, or maybe you are pregnant. If you are a male Gemini, I don't think you're deciding to get pregnant, but perhaps you would like to start a family. You know, even if you're a man, the Empress, if it's dealing with mothering, a man can mother, because mothering is nurturing. So that desire, I mean, I have to believe, I don't have kids, but I have to believe that one of the desires when somebody wants to have kids is because they want to mother something. And sometimes they start with their fur babies and then they move on to humans. So for Gemini, this is sometimes a bit of a dilemma because the love of freedom may feel like it's clashing with a desire to become a parent, and that can create a whole set of challenges. If you are a career person, you may feel that that is going to lead to you having to give it up, or to somehow, I mean, even in 2019, if the woman is expected to leave, the male Gemini, I'm saying leave the workplace, even the male may sometimes have to take off a day of work if their child is sick or what have you. And so it's that fear that somehow it will complicate your life, it will, you know, whatever. If you're not interested in having children, or that ship has sailed, the Empress can be about creative matters, okay? It's really about sensuality as well. The kind of that connection to beauty and to love. So love may be in your life. It's not something, so in other words, if this is a professional issue, I think the dilemma is more along the lines of wanting to have more creativity in your work, or if you're an artist and yet you're working in a bank, how do I, you know, reconcile the two? Could be something along those lines as well. In the past position, we have the Princess of Wands, which is the Page of Wands. Now, pages can bring us messages. And in this case, these are fire messages. Fire messages are fire signs. It could be fire sign people. Your opposite sign is Sagittarius. Aries is another fire sign, in Leo. But what they represent is something that speaks of independence, of enthusiasm, of creativity. So this pages can also be the beginning stages of something. So this could be that you are doing some kind of endeavor that requires creativity and independence, maybe your own business, for instance. And when I say your own business, a lot of times I think people think of something massive, and it really can be quite simple. I try to buy things off of Etsy. If I want to buy jewelry, instead of going to a department store, I buy them from Etsy because I want to support artisans. I want to support people who have cottage industries. And it's not like some big political statement. It's because now that I'm doing the same thing, I want to also do for others what people have done for me by, purchasing a reading. It's really like mutually beneficial. When we support other people's dreams, we are supported as well, and I think I love the idea of supporting people who are trying to get outside of the system, if you will, and trying to do something for themselves. So this may be something that is very much on your mind or in the process of what you're doing. And it doesn't have to be some kind of grandiose thing. It can be very modest, as a matter of fact. But this could be a new relationship with a fire sign, and fire is very compatible with you, which makes you think, is this person the one to start a family? Is this love? You may be feeling love. The higher message is the Queen of Cups, and this is a very intuitive card. And of course they show her, it's really great in this deck that they show the water, because that's intuitive too. And then you have the moon there, and the cup, the cup related to water energy. And it's really, the spiritual message is about spiritual attunement, really tuning into what it is that you are looking for. When you tune into your soul's longings, I don't think you can go wrong. But notice that I said your soul's longings, not your instant gratification or your ego needs, which, it's kind of interesting because the sun represents our ego, but in a healthy sense, the part of us that takes pride in our talents and really wants to shine in the world. There's nothing about that. But the moon is very intuitive and interior. It's not about showing off. It's about lighting within, finding, the inner light. And so it's an internal process. And this is sometimes not that easy for masculine signs, because the first impulse is to always be out there, talking to people, doing things in the outer world. And even if you're trying to do something of a spiritual nature, it can be some activity rather than just sitting still, being passive, and just tuning into the spirit, tuning into your higher self. And that's what you need to do. If there's anything like that you're unsure about, tune into yourself. I was just thinking about this, I don't know if it was this morning, about how we have to trust ourselves, and we really have to, even when you consult somebody else, even when you get a reading, or if you, whatever kind of thing that you do to try to get somebody else's opinion, or even call a friend or whatever. The point is that ultimately you have to, take steps that resonate with you. Nobody else. There's nobody else who is an expert of you more than you are. It is sometimes good to get outer guidance in the sense that you can get a different perspective. Yeah, that's fine. But always tuning into the self, and self-inquiry, I think, is a great method for Geminis, because Geminis tend to like to question things and to analyze things and use the mind. So use the mind as your friend and ask yourself questions. Whenever you feel uncomfortable, uneasy about something, say, where is this coming from? And really sit with yourself and ask those questions. I did this recently, even though I'm not a Gemini. I did this recently, and I was amazed at how I was able to regain equanimity. In other words, balance. You know, sometimes something happens, somebody says something, somebody does something, and you start to kind of like go haywire. And when you start to say, okay, what triggered this within me? You start to unravel that, and you can get to a place of peace. And you're using your mind, but it's your friend and it's not your enemy. Now, speaking of which, look at the card that I got here. Exactly what I'm talking about, the Nine of Swords in the challenge position. Now, this deck, I'm trying to remember if my Morgan Greer deck has this. This deck is very faithful to the Rider-Waite deck, which is why I got it in the first place, because I wanted a change of pace, but I didn't want something so radically different. And but I use my Morgan Greer deck the most, and I can't remember if they show somebody in bed. No, they don't. I think this is better because this kind of shows insomnia, which is kind of a symbol of anxiety, which is what this card represents. Now, that's what I'm saying to you, is that anxiety can get in the way. Now, if you are someone who wants so much to be independent, and you don't want to, you want to spend your days doing creative things, and you feel like you're stuck in a place where you are not doing what you really want to do, but you're afraid of making that change, understand that your mind may be turning against you. It may be telling you some kind of awful things. And the worst part about it is that I'm not even an advocate of just like dropping everything, because a lot of times in those cases, the person really isn't preparing for the slow ascent of something like starting their own business. They're just assuming that they're going to take off right from the start, and that's a little bit unrealistic. I mean, it could happen, but the chances of it happening are not necessarily that great. So when people who want to really make sure that they have the best chance for success, they might do everything they can to have safeguards. And one of them is simply to start your business while you're working at your current job. And unless your job is so toxic that it is causing the anxiety itself, and in that case, you're at risk of having future problems. I mean, you could have all kinds of problems because you're in a very toxic environment. But in most cases, it might just be boredom, and you might feel like you just don't like to be there. So the Nine of Swords, what happens when people feel stuck and they feel like afraid is that it's hard for them to concentrate. It's hard for them to do things like are represented by the Princess of Wands, of starting new endeavors and feeling very enthusiastic about them. They're too afraid. So you have to get rid of the fear. And again, the Queen of Cups, meditate. Maybe your environment is too negative. Maybe you are taking in information, even if it's in the form of entertainment or anything that is very counter to a peaceful mind and a hopeful outlook. So make sure that you're not doing something that is counterproductive for your happiness and well-being, Gemini. It's very important that you do things that are supportive of peace of mind. Maybe there's somebody in your life who is a naysayer, and maybe you made the mistake of telling them your dreams too early on, and they shot them down, and now you're doubting yourself. It's very good, I think, when you have ideas, to keep your own counsel and not to really share them unless you have somebody that has your back and is supportive of you, because a lot of people are very envious of those who are kind of like turning their back on conformity and wanting to do their own thing. You know, with the Empress card, we could be talking about somebody who's artistic. Well, being an artist has always made it so that people were kind of outside of the mainstream. And that's kind of a route that when you go on it, it's almost like becoming a monk, where you know that you're not part of the herd anymore, and you have to be okay with that. And if other people are giving negative messages, it's just really showing their own fear of what they haven't done in their life, of the compromises they've made. And they, you know, misery loves company, as you probably know. And people don't want other people to kind of buck the system, to challenge the paradigm. So understand that, and, you know, keep things close to your heart, under your vest, until it's time to debut them, until you feel strong enough, because they can shoot it down very quickly. What's coming in is represented by the Prince of Swords in reverse, so, which is Knight of Swords. So with the Knight of Swords, even in the upright position, there is this kind of, just for lack of a better word, chaos that can ensue, where the person feels a certain, there's a certain upheaval surrounding a person. Now, in the reversed position for this coming in, I think this is more of a warning that you may, if you continue to tolerate a certain situation, and maybe this is even a love situation where you are unhappy in a relationship and you're deciding whether or not to stay with this person or go. If you just stay in an unhappy relationship or a job, you may just suddenly can't take it anymore, and like the Knight of Cups in reverse, you could just suddenly up and leave and then create chaos in your life. You could have a confrontation with somebody, and that could lead to just a sudden, departure from a job or a relationship that creates more problems. So this can also be that you are trying to just be in yourself, kind of like an extension of the Queen of Cups, that you're trying to just be by yourself. You're not really wanting to put anything out there, and because perhaps you're really thinking about things. Even with the Empress card, this could even be like a pregnancy. Perhaps it was a very sudden and surprising thing that happened, and you weren't expecting it. But watch out for that tendency of the Prince of Swords in reverse to kind of like have that disordered thinking and do things rashly because you can't take it anymore. Realize now, be in touch with your emotions. I think that's an important thing, Gemini, because you are an air sign, and maybe you'll be able to anticipate when is the appropriate time to take action, so that you don't scatter your forces. The outcome is the Eight of Swords, so I did pick an additional card again. The Nine of Swords and the Eight of Swords are very similar to me, but this is your thoughts turning on you. Well, anxiety is your thoughts turning on you. The Eight of Swords is the origin of these things, of what you tell yourself that keeps you down. Those tapes that run, those messages of not being enough or not being able to do anything. You have to really address those things and make sure that you know exactly what is what. Because if you don't, you run the risk of being trapped. This person is bound and even has a blindfold, but it is of her own doing. She is the one who is in control of whether or not she's free or whether she is able to, or whether or not she's tied up. And with Gemini, I think of Gemini as a kind of a high-strung sign. And so it's very important that you not think so much all the time. And this leads to that anxiety that the Nine of Swords represents. So I did pick an additional card just to kind of clarify things. And I got the Seven of Cups, which is a card. This is the one thing that I think is a little bit, I don't know exactly where they're going with this, because in this deck it almost looks like despondent, but it isn't. I would say, I don't know if the makers of these cards actually have a booklet that would describe, what they mean by this. But the Seven of Cups is a card of having multiple choices. And yeah, now that I think about it, looking at it astrologically, you have Jupiter in the 7th house in your opposite sign of Sagittarius. And Jupiter is kind of, to me, connected to this. I think Neptune is, but Neptune is a ruler of Pisces, and Jupiter was also the ruler of Pisces, and the ancient ruler. And so the idea of having all these choices can be kind of like a little bit confusing if you are not clear on your vision. And again, as I said before, you may be a little bit indecisive where you don't know what you should do because you're pulled in two different directions. Whether it's with two different partners, or whether or not to stay in your job or to go out on your own. And it's important to know that you do have a choice. I mean, I think that's very important, that you're not trapped as you think that you are. You're really not. I mean, even like if you hate your job and it's keeping you up at night, you could quit. And that people have to understand this. If you are in a relationship that is really painful, you can leave. Now you might say to yourself, but if I only have enough money to pay for my rent for 1 month. Okay, but you know what? You could leave. You could leave that situation and let the universe take care of it. Most people won't do that because they want some guarantees. And you know what? I'm kind of like that myself. But what I'm trying to say is, if you feel in anguish about something, understand that you have a choice. Don't ever think that you're totally imprisoned by some situation. And that should make it easier to be able to function, because it makes it so that you can tolerate something that is simply, maybe it's, it was good at one time, but no longer something that interests you. And for Gemini, even being bored is torture. So it's not like being bored is just nothing. It's something that you probably fear more than most things. Or being in a relationship, even if the person isn't mistreating you, if you feel this sense of nothingness there. The Princess of Wands represents passion and newness. Gemini loves novelty. So understand that you can have these things, but you have to get control of your thoughts. You cannot let your thoughts rule you. So the Queen of Cups, meditate. Even if you don't know how, try to sit still for a minute. Just breathe in and breathe out. Go on YouTube, find guided meditations. Start somewhere. Okay, you guys, that's what I have for you. If you'd like a personal reading, especially astrological readings, most of my readings are astrologically based, please check my website. I have a link below. Otherwise, have a great rest of January. Take care. Bye.